The Art of Flow.
Welcome to The Art of Flow, a podcast that explores connecting with your body, mind, and soul via movement arts and creative exploration. Through conversations with movement artists, circus performers, flow artists, and fire dancers. My name is Morgan Dalgano, and I'm the creator and host of the podcast, a flow arts enthusiast and a life coach. Feel free to check out some of my other work with individuals looking to get unstuck and discover peace and energy at ignitevibrancy.com. And occasionally, I will bring coaching concepts into the artistic dialogues. The Art of Flow is a free public resource for creators, teachers, and supporters of the arts who are interested in flow arts and fire dancing. It is available for mainstream distribution on iTunes, Spotify, SoundCloud, Google Play, YouTube, Stitcher, and at theartofflowpodcast.com. If you believe in a show that provides inspiration for artists and conversations on the creative process, please support the podcast on Patreon to keep it going. As a supporter, you can earn early access full-length interviews, submit questions for interviewees, be mentioned in an episode, and get a behind-the-scenes look at how the podcast is made. That's The Art of Flow if you're searching for it online. You can also follow the podcast on Instagram and Facebook to receive shorter clips of episodes, updates, and notifications when new episodes are released. Today we will be talking with Liz Knights. Liz is an avid flow artist specializing in poi, buugeng, and hooping. She has taught at numerous flow festivals, organized the Ladies of Tech Poi collaboration series, and has recently been getting into teaching private online poi lessons. In non-pandemic times, she runs a Boston-based entertainment company, Cirque de Light, specializing in fire, LED, and circus performance, and is also a bookings manager for the Boston Circus Guild. When she's not busy spinning, she can be found sewing sparkly costumes and doing her best to keep her two cats away from the sparkly costumes. Stay up to date with Liz by following her on social media and checking out her previous work. You can find more in the show notes below.
Hey, how's it going?
Hey, thank you so much for joining us today. Let's check in. How have these COVID times been treating you? Do you miss things? What do you miss? What do you appreciate, if anything, about the last couple of months?
Yeah, so for me as an introvert, the past couple of months, or like I guess we're coming on like 7 or 8 months now, have been honestly not that bad, and also not that different from kind of like my status quo in a lot of ways. I mean, in a lot of ways, things are obviously turned upside down. That goes without saying. But like, I already did a lot of working from home. I already like train a lot by myself. Like a lot of my like interests and pursuits are like really kind of solitary activities. And I think for a lot of flow artists, that's been like a useful thing. The fact that like our hobby lends itself to being stuck inside. I mean, not for everyone, but it's not like, rock climbing or something. Like if you were like trying to go to the rock gym all the time, like suddenly you can't do that. But so in that regard, like it hasn't been super different, but also like I am or was a full-time performer and booking agent. So like my whole life is circus, and I kind of had all of my eggs in one basket there. And so like with the pandemic, like suddenly I had no work, like almost no work at all. And that's also been, that's kind of been a blessing in disguise, because I kind of needed like a little bit of a reset. I think like right before the pandemic hit, I had taken a vacation. I had gone to the Dominican Republic for a week with a couple other jugglers, which was amazing. And I was like, oh, I really needed that. Like I felt really refreshed and everything. But I think like, honestly, I needed more than that. Like I needed more of a break, because I had just been like working so hard for so long on so many different things. And so this has felt like a time when I can kind of focus again on practicing and creating new material. And that's just been really rewarding and healthy for me. Yeah, as opposed to just being like, gotta make the money, you know? So yeah.
I agree. I've definitely been noticing that different spinners have been taking advantage of the space. You know, if you have a little bit of space between your kitchen and another room or a hallway, or you have a living room, and they've just been using it to spin in creative ways. And also,
Yeah.
like, I really relate. Being able to take a break is nice. I'm coming to the end of a break right now for my full-time job, but sometimes when you need like a longer break, it's hard to see that and actually have that in your life. So getting to have like forced pause can be really helpful.
Yeah, definitely. Where you don't have to like, you don't feel guilty or something about taking that time.
What's your flow story? What inspired you to start fire dancing and glow?
So I started out with like juggling and poi. I was part of the juggling club at the college that I went to. So we had like a fire spinning slash juggling club, which I think was like fairly novel for that time. I think more colleges have it now, and like more have them than you would think. Even in the Boston area, like MIT has a fire spinning club, Tufts has a fire spinning club, and they have for like a little while. But anyway, yeah, so I met a guy who spun poi and he kind of like got me into it. And it's funny because like he doesn't spin poi anymore, but he'll like occasionally like drop in and remind me that he was the person who like started it all for me. Because it's been like obviously a huge thing in my life, like completely shifted everything for me. But yeah, so I started in college, and then my poi journey kind of like took a bit of a break, a sabbatical, because I had to leave college because I was really sick, and I was already really sick, but it got to the point where like that I just couldn't continue, so I had to leave in my junior year from like I have a chronic ongoing illness, and at that point I was like too sick to really do anything. But at a certain point, I got to the point where like I felt like I could do some poi again. Like it was kind of the perfect thing where it didn't require me to be like super super physical, you know, like it's you can be like a bit more gentle with it. It doesn't have to be like super aerobic. So that was good in terms of like what I was experiencing. And then also like I was having a lot of cognitive issues. I mean I still do to a certain extent. And being able to do something that was like movement based instead of like, you know, like something academic or something like that was really perfect too. So I just kind of like started to spin poi again, and then I found out like that there were other spinners in the Boston area. I just like I don't know, I must have Googled something, and I remember calling someone, and that was just sort of like the beginning of it all for me, because that connected me with a pretty sizable community in Boston. Like there is a decent spinner community out here, and so I started going to spin jams and whatnot, and that kind of like linked me into the whole world of it. And in terms of performing, I really started to get into performing after I went to Burning Man and saw a lot of professional fire performers there. And also another person I was working on partner poi with. And so
Yay, partner poi.
yeah, it's pretty awesome. Although like I'm going through partner poi withdrawal because I can't really do it right now because I'm like not quarantined with you know, anybody who I spend partner poi with. Yeah, so the thing about partner poi is like you end up coming up with like sequences and stuff. Like you can't just wing it that much. So naturally, he and I ended up like making some choreography, and that's kind of like I think what like got me started performing as well was just like the partner poi aspect for it, because it was like we were making routines together. So we're like, where are we gonna do our routines? So
That's really fascinating. I'm hearing that like you got into spinning poi from the club at college, and then it became more of a healing modality for you as you know your life hit these major transformations, and you had to pause all physical activity, it sounds like, for a while and really focus on healing yourself. And you and several other people I've mentioned and even talked to on episodes in the Art of Flow have talked about how spinning poi and other props has helped them heal from injuries and, you know, been a process because you can adapt it so much to your needs.
I definitely agree that it can be a healing modality, and that it can be, because it's like such a it can be such a solitary activity. You don't necessarily need to worry about like competing with someone else or matching somebody else's energy level, or some other kind of like group activity where you're having to keep up with other people.
In what ways has fire spinning and floor arts impacted your life overall, mind, body, and spirit?
In terms of my mind, I would say I think it's just given me more confidence, and like more of it, like sort of gave me an identity again, because I was so sick. Like I didn't really have much in terms of like a self or identity. And so like now I definitely feel like I do in a lot of ways, but it was helpful in kind of rebuilding that for me. It has become my career, and that kind of happened organically. But before that, I was really on a path of academia, like just studying, and I was in cognitive neuroscience when I left school, and so like obviously that's a pretty big departure from that. And I think, I mean, who knows, but I think that I'm a lot happier where I am in this profession than I would have otherwise been. So I think it was good for me to kind of get off that track. And then, so like, you know, every single opportunity that has arisen because of performing, you know, I also attribute to the spinning. And then it's just like brought a lot of really cool people into my life.
I wonder if we did a survey of folks that we know in the floor arts and spinning community, the circus community, about who they were or what they were going through when they first discovered or got into spinning, how many we would find were going through a list of like ego, death, or a loss of identity, a transition of some sort, like the crux of a healing journey when they entered into flow arts.
Yeah, I can imagine it would probably apply to a lot of people.
And I'm curious to know, what's your relationship with performance now?
Performance is, for me, like it is an opportunity to take like the skills that I learn, and like present them to people in a creative way that like brings joy. You know, like learning new skills is in and of itself like a total reward for me and a total motivation. And being able to then like to then perform those things for people is just, you know, an added reward and satisfaction. I mean, I guess that's like the major way that I see performance. Performance is also like my livelihood, so it's work, you know, like it is definitely work and exhausting as well. And some performances that I do are more like exciting and satisfying than others. Again, just depend on like what kind of thing I'm doing. Like, am I doing a show, or, you know, am I walking around talking to people, and like what are the people like, and stuff like that.
Stage, do you have a preference between these, or is it ebb and flow in which things you prefer?
Yeah, I mean, I think that like doing actual shows is more rewarding overall, just because like usually a lot more work goes into, or a lot more work goes into like the circus skills, for that. Like the walk around stuff, I can kind of, you can get away with doing less, like less challenging stuff. And you usually end up doing less challenging stuff because it's usually more time. So you can't you don't want to tire yourself out. But the walk around stuff can be really rewarding too, because you're getting to interact directly with people, and bring your excitement right up to them as well, and just get to talk to them and tell them silly jokes and and just find out what their deal is too. So so it kind of depends, and like I said, it depends a little bit on what the audience is as well.
Speaking of that interaction, really having some cyclical exchange of energy back and forth between the audience and yourself as a performer, you began the Lady of Tech Poi video compilations by stepping up to organize it. And I feel like that has gained such traction and attention in the time since when they began. How did it begin?
So it began actually back in 2012 with Marvin Ong. He put together the first compilation, and it was probably 10 spinners or something at that point. I was one of the spinners in it, and that was very popular, got a lot of attention. And then I think it was 2 years later, I just asked him, I was like, hey Marvin, would it be okay if I maybe take over this project? I don't know if he had the intention of doing it again, I can't remember, but I was just sort of would it be okay if I carry this on, and then it could be something was created by a female poi spinner, featuring female presenting poi spinners. So so he obviously was okay with it, and then I think I did it for maybe 3 or 4 years, and it was really well received for the most part, and it was really great because we just got to bond with other female poi spinners across the world over this project, and it was really exciting because people brought some really dope stuff to the table.
Did you face any challenges or surprises in the process of creating the compilations?
So, I mean, initially there was definitely a learning curve of what I'm supposed to be asking people for when I'm asking for videos. There was a learning curve of oh, I should probably tell people their videos need to be well lit, and I need to, they can't be filmed vertically or whatever. It was just specifics like that. So, and the first year or two, I was just really overwhelmed because I was getting all these different video files that I had to convert and all this stuff. And then, the third year or so, I kind of had it more on lockdown and was able to just streamline it and tell people exactly what I needed. So I think that was really the most challenging thing. And then in terms of surprises, I mean, I think I kind of was surprised by how much it grew and how many people were interested in submitting clips by the end of the project. And that was part of the reason that it kind of became too big to be sustainable or to be able to continue it. So yeah, I think that was really the main surprise. But beyond that, I wasn't surprised by how awesome the spinners were. I knew that they were going to be awesome and really bring it. So yeah.
That makes sense. When a project grows to be such a expansive size, the time it takes to continue it or to sort through material and to edit things also exponentially grows, and it can be a handful. What have you noticed in the times that you've been spinning as a woman? Has fire dancing the community shifted over the years, the experience of spinning as a woman in the community shifted, or what are your thoughts on that?
I mean, there's definitely a much bigger, like more visible presence of female poi spinners online, especially online. There were always like role models for me in that regard from the time I started spinning, but it's definitely grown, and like I feel like poi has just grown in general as well. Like I've always felt respected by a large portion of the community, and I think like over time, you know, you earn respect as well, so that's like more just a function of like gaining knowledge and skills and experience. But I will say that like there are always bad apples. Like there's always gross, usually guys who you know, like have negative and misogynistic commentary to throw in there. And I don't know, like to me it feels like that has maybe gotten a little bit worse actually, and I think that's just because like the online community has like just exploded so much that there's just going to be a certain amount of those people. But I also simultaneously feel like more people are aware of it being a problem and are like ready to kind of police it and like stamp it down. So yeah, so there's kind of both sides of the coin there.
That makes sense. As things shift over and flourish in the online communities, there's going to be a lot more, you know, access of people who may not have necessarily gone to an in-person event for spinning or connected with people outside of the internet in regards to our community. And so a lot of like cultural values or a lot of expectations have to be then taught in a different way.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. And how long does it take you to work on your performance projects and your choreographies usually? Is there a varying timeline or something that of a process that you can expect?
Yeah, so it kind of depends. Like if I had it my way, I would have like a year to work on every single routine. But where I'm kind of like a multi-prop, multidisciplinary performer, like, you know, I'm not the person who like specializes in juggling or whatever, like who's going to be like the best at that, and that's the only thing that they're performing. So like that means that I need to be coming up with like multiple routines and like new material for different props like all the time. So I end up probably like spending, I'd say to like create a new routine, it probably takes me like what?
To create a new routine, it probably takes
you. To create a new routine, it probably takes me like 2 or 3 months. But sometimes that timeline is very truncated if somebody's like requesting that I make choreography like specifically for their event. Like I've made routines in like, you know, 2 or 3 days. Like and I obviously they're not going to be the best material I could ever put together, but I'm pretty comfortable with whipping out choreography pretty quickly. Like I just did that for a virtual event that I'm filming this Tuesday. I probably had like a week to put it together, but it was only like 60 seconds of material. But yeah, so if I need to, under pressure, I can make it happen faster. It's just not ideal, not my preference.
That makes sense. So it's variable, but based on circumstance, length of performance, asks, but you also have a personal flow that you are inclined and drawn toward when the circumstances allow. What do you think is the greatest challenge to performing?
For me, like, it's probably nerves. Like, I think that, you know, when I'm doing a new act, a new performance, I definitely still get nervous. And
You're human. Oh, wow.
yeah, yeah, not actually a robot. Yeah. So that's just kind of a thing that, like, you know, I just have to get through. And over time, like, if I do an act over and over again, it gets less terrifying. But I especially, like, I've had some issues with, like, being really nervous performing for other flow artists, and like, depending on what mental state I'm in, it can be like really, really tough. So I would say that's probably still the biggest challenge for me, especially where, like, if you're nervous, like if you're doing something like, you know, juggling or hooping or whatever, like it can just like mess you up, you know. If you have like sweaty palms or whatever, like it can make things really difficult. The only way I know how to deal with that, I'm sure a lot of people have different methods, but is to just keep doing it over and over again.
That makes sense because each thing is a new debut of something you've created. You
Yeah.
also manage the bookings for the Boston Circus Guild. And I'm curious to know, what kind of responsibilities does this entail and how did you get involved?
So I don't fully manage the bookings. I'm the assistant bookings manager. There's like an executive bookings manager for that company, but so, and that person does sort of like all the direct client interaction around booking performances for circus artists, for like everything from like weddings to corporate parties to birthdays or whatever. And my job for the Boston Circus Guild is to basically take care of everything that's going on in the background to make the performances happen. So it's like all the communication with the circus performers, everything from like figuring out, coordinating what everyone's going to wear to like, what is the performance schedule going to be? I mean, it can be just the most random things, like for this event coming up this week, I had to like go to the client's house and like pick up boxes and ribbon because all of the performers needed to make these like gifts that were going to be props that they were using in the videos. So like sometimes it's just like a random thing like that, like go pick up this thing here, like it can be anything. And because of that, it's like always like I always feel like slightly underqualified to do whatever I'm doing because it's like always something new, but at the same time I'm always learning something as well, so that's exciting. It's like fresh and exciting like that. And then for my personal company, Cirque de Light, I do that plus all of the like talking to the clients and like, you know, closing the deal kind of stuff, like, you know, pitching the gig and whatnot.
And when did you begin your company, Cirque de Light, and what inspired you to launch it, create it?
So I think it was probably like 2012-ish was around when it started. And it was initially just like kind of a means to get opportunities for myself and my performing partner to perform. So it was like really just like a name for us, and a way to get us performing opportunities. And since then it's grown to the point where like I'm booking a lot of other performers as well. Like a lot of the time I'm not even like performing at the gig, it's just, you know, other performers. So that's been exciting, being able to expand it and get work for lots of different people, and also being able to like have kind of a creative input in like bigger gigs, bigger events where like there are a lot of different performers and like coordinating them and how they all work together. Yeah, it's just been steadily growing. It's kind of like through networking and just getting your foot in different doors. Like we have ongoing clients who we're constantly working with, but then like new people coming along as like word gets out. And I think like it's not just that people are finding out about my company more. I think it's people just know that that the various types of performing that we do are like options now. Like people are asking for LED performance now, like a lot. Whereas in the past, they might not have thought to ask for that. Like maybe like fire was really popular and like we'd end up doing LED if we couldn't do fire somewhere, but it wouldn't be the first thing that someone asked for. So yeah, so things like that. The fact that people actually like ask for poi now, like that they even know what that is kind of ridiculous.
That's really interesting. They're like involved enough or aware enough of the developments within the spinning world, such as the shift to LED and the great expanse of like what's possible with different types of LED tech and knowing different prop names now. That's exciting.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's like a lot of word of mouth and they like, see something at one event and they're like, "Ooh, what's that? We want to have that at our event." And that's one of the reasons why like I always say that like having competition, having other people doing what you're doing is like good for you too, because it's getting the word out there that like this is an option, and there's at this point there's like so many people, at least where I am, like wanting performers. And part of the reason for that is just because like we've gotten the word out. People know that it's an option now. So.
And as more people want performers, it seems like also more people want to get involved in spinning themselves. Recently, you've begun teaching online private poi lessons. Is that right?
Yeah. So that's been really fun. One of the things that like I didn't expect about that was like I've just been kind of like making these friendships with people that I didn't know already, like other spinners who live in whatever, like New Mexico or so this is like a totally new thing for me. I haven't really ever taught private lessons, period, like let alone online. But I've taught a ton of group classes, like a ton of classes at workshops at flow festivals. And I've taught a lot of people one-on-one, just like casually. And that's kind of my preferred way of teaching, is like one-on-one. I really like that over group classes. And so I just kind of saw this as, mostly I saw it as a challenge. And I also kind of feel like teaching is a way that I can give back.
That makes sense. You have a wealth of knowledge from years of spinning and you've honed your skill sets to a T and you're continually expanding them. So being able to share that knowledge, which is unique to you from your experience, is a form of giving back. I'm really curious, how have you stayed involved and active in the fire dancing community over the years? What has been successful in maintaining participation and engagement from others you have known in the community?
So, I mean, a bunch of different ways. Like I'm pretty active online. And as my performing career has grown, that has like kind of ended up being more of like how I stay connected. Like I used to go to a lot of flow festivals and I still do that a little bit, but I kind of like ran into this conflict where like when you're performing, the key like performing times are the weekends, right? And that's when all the flow festivals happen. So it's kind of hard to like take the time off to go to flow festivals. So more and more I've like stayed connected with people online, whether it's like sharing videos, commenting on videos, just like, connecting with other people's tech online. Recently, like during the pandemic, I've tried to make little spin jams happen, like circus, like socially distanced circus gatherings happen to stay connected with people. I stay connected with the community because like people will reach out frequently with questions and I always try to make time to answer people's questions, or like make a quick video for them or something like that. I really love and value the fact that in the flow arts community, there's just like this open sharing. You know, there are plenty of people who are charging for lessons and whatnot, and like I'm charging for online lessons, but also that like simultaneous with that, there's a lot of just like free sharing of knowledge, and that's something that has been so integral in like supporting where I am today. And so I always want to participate in that in both directions.
I really respect that. I feel like that's a thing that is unique and special to this community, of the openness to inviting whoever's interested in, and also answering questions and sharing what you do know to sort of get them moving along their interests. What tech, when it comes to Poi, are you interested in right now?
What tech am I interested in right now? Well, I had like made it a goal to get good at gunslingers during the pandemic, and I have been working on those, but I've taken a little break. I'm excited about gunslingers, and then beyond that, I don't know if there's like categories right now. I'm working on a lot of tosses, a lot of like tosses and combinations there, and I think I'm like trying to do that as much as possible while it's still warm outside, because I can like actually go outside and throw things around and not like annoy my downstairs neighbors. So yeah, so that's kind of where my focus has been with tech recently.
That makes sense. Use the warm weather while you can. And what are some of your favorite creative projects that you have worked on? Why?
Oh goodness. I really like partner and group choreography. I like kind of the melding of minds. And I recently put together a 3-person visual poi, like pixel poi routine, with 2 of my like friends, performing partners, and that was really satisfying, because we still felt rushed. It was like over the course of a month, but it was like enough time where we were able to like really sink our teeth into it. And yeah, and it just felt really good performing that. I feel like some of the partner routines I created earlier on when I was performing were really rewarding. They had more like narrative to them, and I think I've sort of like steered away from that a little bit with like creating routines for like corporate settings and things like that. Tends to be like less narrative driven. It doesn't have to be, but that's just been a little bit like more my direction. So yeah, some of those initial routines, did one that was like called we called it the demon routine, and it was a partner poi routine. It was my partner was the demon, and like the whole routine, I never see him, and so we had to do like everything is like done either like back to back or back to front, so that I never see him with like the partner poi choreography, like all fire choreo. And yeah, it was just like a cool way for us to integrate all these like new tricks we were working on at the time, and have this narrative at the same time. So that was super fun.
That sounds so challenging. It's really cool to be able to take what you've been working on, you're excited about, and then weave a story into it.
Yeah, definitely.
Do you have a consistent personal practice when it comes to flow art specifically that you'd be willing to share with us?
I think the top like 2 questions you always get asked are, like how many years have you been spinning, and kind of like how many hours do you practice a day? And yeah, I don't know if anybody ever does the math to like add the two together or multiply the two together. Yeah, so because of my chronic illness, it's a little hard for me to like have strict routines that I stick to. I probably, and not that you asked this specific question, but I probably practice poi like maybe on average an hour a day at this point. And in terms of the way that I practice, I try to make space for just flowing to music. And then I will also, like, whatever the new tricks that I'm working on are, I will also like try to flow with the like deliberate intention of incorporating those tricks. Like those are kind of like two separate things, like flowing with like no goal in mind, and then also like flowing with the intention of like trying to incorporate these new things. So I do that, and then I also like will just train new skills as well. And I always try to be like, I always make an effort to be learning some things that are like going to be like long-term goals that are going to take a longer time to learn, and then some things that are like, oh, you know, I can probably learn this in a day, or you know, learn it really quickly, because I feel like I need a little bit of that like positive reinforcement alongside things that are going to take me longer to learn.
What inspires you when it comes to those long-term goals, those new skills?
So I'm often inspired by other spinners and material that they post and share. I'll get excited by something I see, online, and I don't know, I just end up being attracted to certain moves. Like there are certain categories of moves that interest me more than others. Like there's some that I can like tell you, like, I'm just not really that excited about this, at least not now. And so when I see something flashy that I like, I'm like, oh yeah, I want to be able to do that as well. Like overarching goal, or the thing that like kind of guides my practice, is that I'm always trying to like increase my vocabulary so that I can like flow to music better, or like more precisely. Like that's one of the things that guides me, is like just wanting to be able to like embody the musicality through spinning and just feel it. Like I feel a need to like dance and move to music, and I just want that to be sort of like, I don't know if like effortless is the right word, because it's always going to require effort, but like just as fluid as it can be. That's why I'm like always trying to increase my poi vocabulary, regardless of like what specific move it is.
As you spoke just now, I got this really strong image in my mind of the goal of merging yourself with the music so that your body and your movements and expression of the sound is.
Yeah, like just having the two things be sort of like inseparable, and really naturally linked.
That's beautiful. If you could step into my shoes, what would you have asked yourself that I didn't?
Well, for one thing, I think that it's important, like I think it's important that we continue discussions regarding racial justice, and like how that impacts our community, and what is occurring regarding that in our community. So I don't know what the question there would be, but kind of like maybe like what what am I doing, or what do I think people can be doing, with regards to that. So I guess that's one question. Just because I think it's an important conversation to keep having. Like, I know we're all wrapped up in the election and everything, but I don't want it to get lost.
Yeah, you don't want the cultural memory and quick attention span to forget about talking about the really important things, which is this long-term unaddressed racial injustice in the country and also how it impacts our community. So if you're willing, we'd love to hear about what have you been doing to help right now, and how are you standing for going forward when it comes to racial justice, and particularly at the intersection of the performance and arts community.
One of the things that I've been doing, which isn't like directly linked to the flow arts community, but it is like sort of via the circus community. I've been, I joined the DEI, like diversity, equity, and inclusion committee for the company that I work for, the Boston Circus Guild. And so we've been, as a committee, like just looking at how our circus organization can like embody all of those things, diversity, equity, and inclusion better through like our policies and whatnot. And I think every like small circus organization that does that is like, it will have an additive, a cumulative effect for the circus community. I think like, also, I mean, I did some fundraisers for Black Lives Matter that tried to sort of incorporate, like bring in the flow community for the fundraisers, like specifically by like auctioning off, raffling off poi. And I've also like, another thing that I think is important is that people who are sponsored by companies, like flow arts companies, that they look at whether those companies are also like promoting diversity and equity, and are maybe not just sponsoring all white folk. So that's something that's been important to me to address with the companies that sponsor me, and they've been like open to having that conversation. So that's been good.
That's exciting, because really what you see out in the world, what's represented for a brand influences the amount of inclusion and also people's perception of a community and of an art. And
I definitely don't feel like I'm doing enough, and I think I should be doing more. And I'm going to take it upon myself to figure out how to do more. And I will admit that I'm also like distracted by this election, and like the two things are, they go hand in hand, because at least as far as I'm concerned, like focusing on the election and the best possible outcome for racial justice is connected as well. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at, and and I always welcome feedback too, in terms of how I can do better, but I know it's also my responsibility to figure that out too. But yeah, I appreciate you taking the time to talk about it, because it's just a thing that I don't want the conversation to get lost.
I really appreciate you bringing it up as a question posed to yourself and included in this interview so that we could delve into it. I want viewers who have comments or questions about anything that we discussed in the interview, feel free to reach out. You can post comments on the video. You can reach out to the Art of Flow podcast at gmail.com. You can visit on Facebook, on Instagram. But I still have one final question. What is your ideal world?
My ideal world, I mean, I could probably just like insert the phrase like the liberal agenda there that would like kind of cover it. I mean, like my ideal world is one in which people believe in science and care about the planet that we're living on and care about each other and my ideal world is one where, I don't know, like after experiencing this pandemic, like for me personally, I think one of the takeaways for me is like I don't know, I feel like we all are working too much. Like I'm pretty like on team like UBI, like, you know, we're working too much. We're not like out in nature enough. We're not able to focus on art enough. So my ideal world is one in which people don't have to work quite so much and aren't having to, I don't know, like their identities aren't entirely wrapped up in like surviving and making money. And they're free to like have their identities be informed by different things. I don't know, just thank you for having me. And like I said before, I'm excited to connect with people. So don't hesitate to reach out with whatever questions you might have, or if you want to take poi lessons, or if you don't want to take a poi lesson and you're just like, how do I do this one trick? Maybe I can make you a video or something. So yeah.
Contact information for Liz is in the show notes.